Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 17 of the Day or Night in the Desert podcast with James and Zach. And before we get started today, I just want to remind everybody to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you guys never miss any of our great content coming up. I am sad to say today that we do not have Zach on for today's episode. We just had some scheduling conflicts we had to work through, and he and I will both be back on the next episode. But I hope you guys still enjoy our content today because we have some great stuff to get into. And our primary topic for today will be the Utah Mammoth, who have been in a first round playoff series with the Vegas Golden Knights. Unfortunately, this series didn't quite turn out the way we had hoped, but the Mammoth still gave it a great run and had a lot of highlights, and so we'll get into some of that here to begin. Their first matchup at home was Game 3 in the Delta Center, and this was a big win for us. We won 4-2. We got up 4-0 in large part due to Lawson Krause scoring 2 goals 5 minutes and 42 seconds apart in the second period, as the Utah Mammoth jumped out to a 4-0 lead before the Vegas Golden Knights ultimately cut it to 4-2. This was a great start for our first home playoff win ever in franchise history. We'd never been in a home playoff game, and to win it was an even more amazing feat. The Vegas Golden Knights, meanwhile, they had their struggles in this game. They cut it to 4-2 in the third period, with Jack Eichel and Nick Dowd each scoring a goal. But unfortunately, it just wasn't enough for the Vegas Golden Knights to beat the Utah Mammoth, but a great start for the Utah Mammoth in their first Stanley Cup playoff series at home. Unfortunately, from there, it kind of went downhill with Game 4, which I was there. This was one of the craziest hockey games I've ever seen. The Vegas Golden Knights jumped out 3-0. Utah Mammoth came back to take a 4-3 lead before Vegas ultimately scored a goal in the third period off of Brett Howden's stick with 10:25 left in regulation to tie the game at 4 apiece. It then went into overtime, and 19 minutes into overtime, Shea Theodore knocked in the game-winning goal to tie the series with Utah at 2 games apiece. Unfortunately, that really shifted the momentum Vegas's way, as they would go on to also win Game 5, 5-4 in double overtime. And this was a really close game as well, a lot different than Game 4 was. Game 5, John Marino started the scoring for the Mammoth just a couple of minutes into the game before Pavel Dorovev tied the game with 1 minute left in the first period. Lawson Krause then got the Mammoth out to a 2-1 lead in the second period before Dorovev scored his second and Theodore scored to take a 3-2 lead at the end of the second period. But then the Mammoth came right back in the third period, scored 2 goals from Dylan Guenther and Michael Carconi to take a 4-3 lead before Dorovev scored his third goal of the game to tie it at 4. This game ultimately would go to double overtime, where Brett Howden would win 5 minutes into double overtime to give the Vegas Golden Knights a second consecutive win over the Utah Mammoth in the series. And then, not to really pile it on, but unfortunately we lost Game 6 as well, 5-1. This was a very disappointing performance at the Delta Center. Mitch Marner had 2 goals and an assist, Brett Howden had 1 goal, and Carter Hart with 22 saves at a 95+% save percentage. The lone Utah Mammoth goal came from Kaylor Yamamoto 7 minutes into the third period off of an assist from Sergachev and Mackenzie Weegar, but ultimately it just was not good enough for the Mammoth to advance. But it has been a really great season for our team. Congratulations to the Utah Mammoth on even making the playoffs. And I do want to say a few things to the fans out there and just to also the people who have supported this team. And I'll start out by kind of just sending a message to all the Mammoth fans out there, whether you're optimistic or not about the future of this team. It is a monumental achievement in our first year as the Utah Mammoth and our second year in Utah overall to be essentially an expansion team. I mean, I know that a lot of the players came over from the Arizona Coyotes, but that was a struggling franchise that was playing in an arena of just 5,000 people and wasn't really getting very high attendance or very much traction at all, and the whole team was struggling. And to go from that to just 2 years later being in the playoffs, playing against a powerhouse like the Vegas Golden Knights, and taking that series to 6 games is a remarkable achievement. We've talked a lot about the successes of Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, Mikhail Sergachev, Nick Schmaltz, Dylan Gunther and others on this team. They've come in and grown and developed so much over the course of last season and coming into this season. And I know last season we came up just short of the playoffs and it was kind of disappointing, but we had a good run last year. But then this year, it finally kind of came together. We make a playoff push. We ultimately end up getting into the playoffs, pushing the Vegas Golden Knights all the way to 6 games. Certainly a monumental achievement by this team. And to the doubters out there, or the people who are just struggling because the season's over or because they didn't feel like we achieved enough, I'll just say this. It's a monumental achievement to come in and achieve that in our second year, and we should be really happy with that as Mammoth fans instead of sad. I think that we grew a lot this year. Logan Cooley especially, still a young player, just 21 years old. He's grown so much in his first 3 years in the National Hockey League. Had his best season ever. And so I think that that's a positive that we can take away from this team. And I would encourage the fans out there to just stay positive. We're going to have great years going forward. We're already on a trajectory that we can build upon and we can learn from as an NHL team. And I think that that will continue to build and develop going into the future. And I think we're going to have a great team over the next few years. And I'm still very optimistic that we can go deep into the Stanley Cup playoffs and maybe even win a Stanley Cup for the state of Utah. But it was such an exciting atmosphere to be a part of. I'm so proud of all the fans who showed up and showed out for us every single night, and proud of all the players who came through and gave us a show. And a lot of these games, even in defeat, were thrilling. It's not like we just ran away from the Vegas Golden Knights and we hid from them. You know, we came out and we showed the world who we are as a hockey team and as an NHL franchise, and showed the world what we are capable of. And I think that those capabilities will not only increase over the next few years, but that we'll begin to see more of the potential that we really have as a hockey franchise. And I just want to encourage people to kind of be optimistic and look into the future with bright hopes, because we certainly have what it takes. We just need to continue to develop, continue to grow as a team, and ultimately it's going to lead to, I believe, some really great things for the Utah Mammoth franchise. And I'm just so excited that we're able to have a hockey team here in Utah, and that the fans showed up and showed out every single night, and that it gives us a product that we can all be pleased with being able to see. I'm just going to cover a couple of more quick things before I get on out of here tonight. The Lakers finally clinched their series against the Rockets in 6 games. It was a struggle with the Lakers being up 3-0. We talked a lot about what the Lakers were kind of lacking coming into this series. They showed up and showed out in their first 3 games and took this massive lead, but then we saw the Rockets kind of make a big comeback in games 4 and 5. But ultimately in game 6, they just came through and took care of business. LeBron James led all scorers for the Lakers with 28 points. Rui Hachimura added 21. Austin Reeves added 15 in just his second game back in the series after dealing with an injury for the first few games of this series and the end of the regular season. So we saw a lot from the Lakers. Good job on them for getting out of that series alive. And yeah, that's pretty much going to cover what I wanted to cover today. The Lakers will move on to play the Thunder in the second round of the playoffs. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Day or Night in the Desert podcast with James and Zach. Sorry Zach was unable to make it today. And so I just wanted to hop on here and give a quick recap of the Mammoth playoff series. Saw a lot of great things from them, great things going forward for them. So thank you guys, and we'll see you guys in episode 18.